Welcome to Real Talk TV. My name is Darryl Buchanan. I'm your host. Just thank you guys for sticking with me, sharing these videos, and I appreciate all the support. I just want to give a couple of shout outs. I want to give a shout out to Air and Addiction with Lisa Blanchard and Jesse Chasen. It's a Spectrum host podcast. They discuss addiction, recovery, personal stories. They have beautiful guests, and that's also a professional opinion there. I also want to give a shout out to Yard Time Entertainment, Joseph Bennett. Thank you for all the work that you're doing. I want to give a shout out to the Recovery Connection staff, peers that come through there. Appreciate all you guys. We are getting ready to have the open house where we're reintroducing the center to the community, and I will keep you guys updated on the date. It's coming soon. I'll have it posted so you guys can attend. Today I have a really nice show, a really nice guest. It's really not too, so much that I can say, but I'm just happy to know her, happy to be a friend, and the reality is she's my boss. But I'm just appreciate that.
I didn't even think about that till now.
Yeah, you're the boss, the big boss, right? Yeah. So I'd like to introduce Athena Haddon. She's Executive Director of Peer Services and Recovery, supports at Spectrum Health Services. And like I said, she's a good friend of mine. She's also a woman in long-term recovery. And before the show's over, you'll understand that there's a lot of people that look to her as a power example. So yeah, thank you for coming, Athena. I appreciate it. You look really relaxed. I'm grateful for that. Can you tell us just a little bit about yourself, please?
Sure. Thanks for having me, Darryl. Yeah. My name's Athena Haddon. I'm a person in long-term recovery. Currently, my role is with Spectrum Health Systems. I'm the executive peer. Oh my goodness, I got to think about this. Executive Director of Peer Services and Recovery Support, and is actually my third time working for Spectrum. And I came back to work for them in June, and really honored that. They value my lived experience. And I'm really honored to be working for an organization that values my lived experience. And yeah, it's been great. Prior to this, I worked for an agency called MORE, Massachusetts Organization for Addiction Recovery. It's an organization that does education and advocacy for the state. I can talk more about that later. Cool. But yeah, so I've been in recovery. It's funny because I thought I got into recovery in 1992, but I recently went to a 12-step convention, and I looked up on the wall where they had all the banners, and the first one I went to was 1993. So it was 1993 that I entered treatment, and I was looking at some significant jail time. It wasn't my first rodeo. I'd been in and out of the prison system and jail, and this time it was just over. I'm 30 years old, and they're trying to give me like 2.5, and I was just like, I can't do 2.5. I feel too old to do it. I couldn't do it, and I just really started to do some internal work. I said, what can I, let me go to treatment. Let me go do something different. And initially, it was really just to beat that case. I really did not.
That's what we all do, right?
It really was, it really was to beat that case. And I went to that program, and I broke some of the rules. I wasn't completely honest. The only thing I did right was I didn't get high, but I did a lot of foolishness, and I made a lot of mistakes, things that were suggested I didn't get involved in, I got involved in, and so I made it harder for myself initially in recovery, not taking suggestions and stuff. But, here I am. I just didn't use no matter what. And here I am years later. I kind of recovered in spite of myself, maybe. I don't know, But
grace, yeah.
Yeah, so here I am.
Thank you. All right, let's go take it back a little bit. I appreciate that. What type of environment did you grow up in? And when did, at what age or how did you come about, getting involved in drugs? It seems so long ago. I'm 61 now, so when I have to go back that far, I really have to go back, and I'm
challenged me to go back to a long time ago. So yeah, I was born in Paris, France, believe it or not.
Wow,
So,
for real?
yeah, I was. And my dad was in the Air Force, so my brother and I were both born in Paris, France. So we were military children, Air Force brats, and we moved around a lot. I don't think my brother has the same experience I did, but as a young girl, I found that very difficult. I was always having to say goodbye to new friends, move around, you know. So I felt like every 2 years I was doing like the crying with my best friend, like either their family was being relocated or our family was being relocated. So that was tough. By the time I hit 12 years old or so, my father retired and we ended up here, and my mother is from this area, Central Mass, so we ended up here. And, you know, I just found it was easy to get involved. It was easier to fit in with some folks that were doing some things that were, you know, experimenting with drugs. I had some other things happen to me. Some trauma, and you know, that's a whole nother episode.
Exactly.
But you know, it just one thing to another, and you know, eventually, yeah, the addiction, you know, it got a hold of me, and I just was always getting in trouble. Was it
always drug related?
It was drug related and lifestyle. I had a real life. Oh man, I had an adrenaline for lifestyle at a young age.
Me too, yeah.
You know, and I don't know, like it was almost before drugs. I had this adrenaline thing that I like to get away with stuff.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So that kind of too was that behavior of me getting away with stuff. That kind of adrenaline.
No, I get it.
Rush thing that I had at a young age too. So like, which came first, the chicken or the egg? I think it was like a combination of it, both of it. You know, my adrenaline and my need for that adrenaline, and that, and then the drugs, of course, to sedate some of the trauma and stuff. Yeah.
And when I think of my addiction, I look at my life and I remember that I was already doing crazy stuff. At 10, doing B&Es. 9, just running around crazy. But I just thought I was crazy, you know what I mean? People used to say I was crazy. But I always said that, and then when I did use drugs, it just took me to a whole nother, to a whole nother level. So yeah, I already had this problem. So when I got, you know, dealing with substance use disorder, I also had to deal with that lifestyle and criminality and those behaviors even after, because they, you know, you put down the drugs, but all that stuff still became, you know, it was like stealing in stores and just that type of thing. I remember being in a program in Cambridge, and I had to run out of the damn CVS, and I had a lot of money. I was working, but I was in a program, and I stole Tic Tacs and I ran out the store, right?
Like you needed. I know.
It was ridiculous. I actually ran.
Yeah.
And because it was right around the corner from the meeting in Central Square, and I went back like, this is crazy. Right. So I understand that.
Right.
But when did you first realize it was a problem? Because to me, it was hard for me to identify that.
Like again, I thought I always had control, that I could stop when I wanted to, and I tried so many times. Like I'd stop and I'd switch up my drug of choice. Like okay, I'm just not gonna smoke crack today. I'm gonna, you know, maybe just go to the bar and try to have a couple drinks. And you know, it's in that for me, it was very hard to do that. Like to just go from putting down crack cocaine and just trying to have a drink. I really needed a complete something. Like I needed to like really have something that turned my whole life around and really looked at everything in my life, not just like, because we just talked about it was more than the drugs. It was what was this need inside of me that I could not sit still with my own self. You know what I mean? I had to have this need to like fill something all the time, you know? So yeah, so I don't know. I think when I went into that program,
did you get clean? I mean, was that your first time trying to get clean?
That was my first time really going, because I was looking at some serious charges. Now, I had gone several times just because, like, the money ran out, and I went into detox, you know, for a quick spin dry. I never did further than a few days in detox. It was my first time, although several times in detoxes throughout the years and in jail, people suggested that I go to a program, but I never took the suggestion. And finally, when I was looking at that case, I said, those charges, I said, let me go into a program. And, you know, when I went into that program, that I thought I was going to just get away with I thought he's going to say, the judge is going to say, hey, you're in a program, case dismissed, you know, and that's not what happened at all. He looked at my letter from the halfway house and said, these letters come a dime a dozen. And he tried to give me 2.5 years. And I got really, at that point, I was so tired, I just didn't feel like I had 2.5. And as we were getting older, going to jail, that these people, the younger in jail, and you know what I'm talking about, right? So it was just, it's like I just didn't think I could do it. And so I really just prayed for something different. And I went to a program, I met some women that were really just, it was the timing. I think like the timing for me was right. It was my time. I think we all have it, when we have a time. My stars seemed to align, and I stayed in that program. It was like a block from where I was hustling, because I really didn't even want to leave the blog. I had a boyfriend out there that was still out there. I was just trying to beat this case, but I wasn't sure if I really wanted this. But I was there. It was the right time for me. I met some wonderful women and men, but that's where it happened for me, and it was just my time, and I just haven't, found it necessary to go back.
Great. All right, let's talk. I want to talk a little bit about the peer recovery centers. Can we talk a little bit about the centers that we do, that Spectrum does have, what we're doing with those, and why is that model effective?
I love the peer recovery centers. So 2008, I applied for a position at Spectrum for a peer recovery center, and this is the one in Worcester. So in 2008, we opened Everyday Miracles in Worcester, and we opened Recovery Connection here in Marlborough at the same time. And that was at the time when the state funded 5 peer recovery centers around the state of Massachusetts. And nobody really understood that model. Spectrum handed me the RFR and said, good luck. Good luck. I tell this story to them. This is to me.
They say, we didn't do that to you.
They handed me the RFR literally and said, good luck starting your program. And I was like, wait, what? What? Nobody. And at the time, the woman that hired me, she said, you're the expert. And honest to God, nobody in my entire life to that point had ever called me an expert in anything except really messing up my life, because I had done that pretty well, And so, nobody had given me that, trusted me with that amount. And so, for me, that's what these peer recovery centers are. We give these centers to the community, the recovery community, and we say, these are your programs. You folks in recovery are the experts. Run it the way that what you need it to, how you need it to run. And so that's the model, and the model is a very participatory, because, we all as people in recovery, we really know what we need. I mean, we do. We know what we're supposed to do, and we know what we're not supposed to do when we're in recovery and to stay into recovery. So these centers, I thought that when that model, because society has said to us that we can't take care of ourselves, right? Right? If we have something like that, it's going to be burnt to the ground overnight, right? So, oh my God, you're going to let a bunch of drug addicts run a place, they'll run it into the ground.
Turn into a crack house.
Yeah, that's the society, that's the message that society thinks about us. But these centers run so successfully with very little staff involvement, with very little organization involvement. It's really the members. You've been at all the centers around, a lot of them around the state, and they run so well. They're good neighbors in the community. They really are part of the solution for addiction recovery in communities. They're as valuable to recovery centers as youth centers or senior centers. They're as valuable to communities as that. They really are. And every one of them that runs through the centers, that runs through the state, I've been to most of them, and they really are just really effective.
They're blessings.
Yeah, they are. And I don't know if the communities really grasp. Sometimes the communities, I don't think they really grasp what an asset they are to the community.
Because they can't get past the stigma.
Yeah.
The perception they're not open to. And then I wanted to talk a little bit more about the stigma part, but you're right. I think for me, and I told a story before, that, at the end I had nothing, and I was on the run when I actually came the first time up to Recovery Connection Marlborough. I was on the run, didn't have anything, came in, and I remember being accepted. They didn't care that I was black, or and I came to Marlborough, so my perception of Marlborough was, I don't know why I'm hiding in the town that didn't have too many blacks, but anyway, I just ran. But I went there and no one cared.
Right.
Right? No one knew I was on the run, and I I was empowered. I remember sitting there and they had me make decisions on stuff
Right,
that
it's
was going
amazing,
on. So
right?
I come from
Yeah.
a place of, no voice, no nothing. I walk in the doors, I had a voice and I had power. And I see that happen with people, and I think that upside down triangle is a blessing. You know what I mean?
So we're in a place now that 20, 30 years ago, people didn't know much about addiction, and today I think everybody knows somebody that's affected by the disease,
100%.
right, of addiction. We know our neighbors, we see it in the news, we see it,
Yeah.
we go to work, we have coworkers that have kids that are struggling, we see, or people burying their children.
Yeah.
I mean, it's sad. So I think today everybody knows somebody that has the addiction. So it used to be that, as long as I don't see it, I don't think it's a problem, right? That's kind of privilege. If it doesn't affect me, then it's not really a problem.
Yeah.
Well, now we see that a lot of people are being affected by addiction, and it's not about, it's not a class thing, it's not a race thing, it's not that, it's like, jail or Yale. Remember they say, it doesn't discriminate. And,
No, it doesn't.
And
100%.
so, right, so, so communities, we're in a different place now with it, so we're talking about it more. But there is still a stigma. I mean, it's still there, but language is a lot. I think as people in recovery, we should do better at working towards stigma. I mean, a lot of times we still identify.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying like what people do in their own pathways to recovery, because I know some people go to groups or meetings where they identify certain ways, but outside of those, when we're speaking, I'll give an example. When I was about 5 years in recovery, I went home to visit my mother. And I said, Mom, after dinner, I'm going to a meeting, one of my meetings, my recovery meetings. And she said, do you still go to those meetings? And I said, Mom, I'm going to be an addict for the rest of my life. Yeah. What was the message that my mother heard when I said that? Here I am doing well. I'm thriving in my recovery. But I said to her, I'm going to be an addict for the rest of my life. My mother must have said, like, when is the nightmare going to end?
Yeah, am I going to be afraid the rest of my life?
When's the nightmare going to end, right? So the message that we're putting out, and that's me, I'm a person in recovery, so I can't complain about stigma if I'm the one that's continuing to put out this same language that's causing some of the stigma, right? So, so I could have told my mom, like, Mom, I go because I like to be even killed. I like to go, I continue to get support. I go when I think I need. I could have said anything, but instead I said, I'm an addict for the rest of my life, you know? And so, and let's talk about that. Am I an addict for the rest of my life? Let's talk about that.
That's one of my questions.
So, yeah,
you want to go there?
I'll lead right into it. So, like, I think as people in recovery, we should be talking about some of these things, and what language do we elevate, and what language do we get rid of now? Like, what language are we not using? I know if I'm advocating for something around, like, and when I'm going to legislators to ask for more funding for more programs, and I go to them and say, my name's Athena and I'm an addict for the rest of my life, can you give us some money over here? How does that sound? As a legislator, or are they going to push through stuff for us to get money if that's the message we're sending to legislators? Yeah. So, so the language is everything, but then, like, some of the things I like to sometimes say, like, do we recover, or are we always in recovery? Yeah. I like to have these debates around my peers. So I think it generates conversations, it provokes thought. And, instead of just like, well, that's the way it's always been. Well, we know the way it's always been isn't the way is working, right? Yeah. It's not really working for us. So, I like to sometimes say, like, I feel like I've recovered from the disease of addiction. Now, some of my friends,
I already know.
Some of my friends might say, Athena, that you might want to get to a meeting if you're talking like that. But, I really feel like for me, I came into a program to get help. Right, I got help from my disease, and like if it's about obsession or compulsion to use drugs, I don't have that. I don't have that urge today. I don't do those things today, and so like, do I continue? Do I use the word like, have I recovered? Am I recovered? Yeah. Some people will be like, oh, but. I feel like I don't have the compulsion or the compulsion to use. I don't have that. It doesn't drive me.
And those are the two things that
obsession and compulsion is what they talk about, right? We hear that a lot in recovery. Like, that's what needs to be addressed or arrested: the obsession and the compulsion. Because after we get medically cleared, right, detox, we medically get the substance out of us. Then it's like the work is about the obsession, arresting that.
Because we had a discussion today in the community meeting, and one of the peers brought that up, and I was like, man, and I had it already written down, to ask, and they were talking about, and I kind of understand this. If this disease is here, how important is the self-talk, right? So if I'm saying I'm an addict, I'm always leaving the door open.
Right.
I mean, am I really always an addict, or do it's kind of confusing. It's exciting, and it's also scary for me. You know what I mean? Like, okay, because when I came in, that's what I heard.
You're right.
And
I think
is that something? Is it just the language that I incorporate, or I heard, and I'm just taking it on? Because if it's about brain, if I'm telling myself something different, won't my brain believe something different and shut doors?
That's what I'm saying, like positive self-talk. We say it all the time. Like, people put affirmations all over their mirrors, right? Like, you are beautiful, you are worthy, you are all these things. Like, we have all these post-notes all over our house to self-talk. Yet, we're putting a label on ourselves every single day when we're identifying as alcoholics, addicts, or things of that nature. If we're using the disease as the label versus like I'm a person with addiction, or I'm a person with alcoholic, or she's a person with substance use disorder. Using that, language. But when we are the disease, like that would be like me walking around and saying, my name's Athena and I'm cancer. We wouldn't say that, right? I'm a person that is going through, that has cancer or has, right? So that's kind of the thing. But I'm not saying anything is for everybody either. Yeah. I don't think
that could be your pathway.
I think you have to ask yourself those questions. Yeah. When I had, again, 5 or 6 years clean, I went to I was attending some 12-step stuff, and a sponsor I had very early on, and I said, how long do I get to identify as an addict? And this is in no way to be against any 12 steps saved my life.
But if you're coming in,
I'm going to just put that out there. 12 steps saved my life. Yeah. Okay, it did. Yeah. But at the problem at this time, I went to my sponsor and said, how long do I identify with this label? I don't, like it was, and I was told at that time that my disease is on me. I should share at a meeting openly about like why I'm feeling like this. And I learned many years later when I remember that time, because the answer didn't sit well with me. That wasn't what I think I was feeling. I was feeling not the disease of addiction. I was feeling the dis-ease of wearing that label when I was not doing any of those things that society says what that label is.
Wow,
you get what I'm saying?
Yeah,
so the disease was me wearing this label, because we do this exercise at the recovery center sometimes around stigma, and we ask people, like we'll put on a board the word addict, and we ask people in recovery, when you see that word, what comes to mind? Well, what do you think comes on the word? The next thing they're writing, like homeless, bum, thief, liar, cheater. Yeah. All these words. And these are the words that are associated with that. So if I'm going to say that and call that, to your point, Darryl, about self-talk. Now I know all these words that are associated with that word. Wow. Yeah. And now I'm calling myself that every time I say something to somebody and I identify like that. Now I understood why I had to do that early on. I really did. I had to make some admissions to my problem, But then when I started to get into recovery and feel differently and get well, like some of that stuff, just didn't stick well with me anymore.
So that's deep. I love to have.
I love having those conversations.
We need to have more conversations. Yeah. I think people are afraid of it. There was people that went against it, like, oh, you're going against. But I believe, like, there's progressiveness of the disease, there's progressiveness of recovery, there's evolution of the disease, and I think there's evolution in recovery. I think these things have to change, especially the times that we live. And I just think it's the conversations, and it's people that just not open for change. Right. And that might be their pathway.
And that's fine too.
It is fine too. Yeah. But it should be fine too that we can talk about the information that we feed our brain. Right. You're right. You're 100%. I don't want to get up and call myself these negative things anymore. And I think a lot of stuff that I've learned in recovery, right, was traumatic, and it was very traumatic.
Well, we came from a place too, you know, there was not a lot of pathways. So let's talk about the multiple.
Let's talk about
last
those.
week we had, the Bureau of Substance Abuse had an infinite pathway conference out
Okay,
in Norwood. It was all about the infinite pathways to recovery. And like, when I first got into recovery, there was two options. You went here or you went there. And if that didn't fit, like, you were just forced to do that. And today, like, recovery can be as individual as the individual, which, to know that we've come to this place that there are so many pathways to recovery, and that's the beauty of it. Like,
I think that's beautiful,
I go to 12-step still on occasion. I go to yoga on occasion. I go to nature on occasion. I mean, there's so many pathways. I'm doing this sound therapy thing I'm going to experience in the next week or two, and I'm interested in that. I've been in drumming circles, like so many other places that you can find recovery or you know, do you know, whatever your pathway is. And that was unheard of 20 years ago. Like, people are like, I remember saying things like, when people chose to leave like 12-step and go to like church or faith-based, we used to just say some things like they're going
Still
to
say
we
stuff.
used to say things like, oh, well, they're going to hide in church now and stuff. Like, I mean, that was just so close-minded. I was so close-minded in recovery at one point. And I'm so glad that, and this has only come from education, educating myself, stepping out of a pathway to see some other things.
Not being afraid to talk about other things, you know what I mean?
When Everyday Miracles opened in 2008, you know, I used to have some biases around medicated assisted treatment because I had my own, what I had heard about it being a crutch or it being a substitute or, you know, these things. And I had bought into the same rhetoric, you know, because I had heard it over and over again. But then when I opened Everyday Miracles and I saw people that were really successful on medicated assisted treatment, I mean, they were coming and they were like, you know, coming to the center on time, working there, volunteering there, going to work, running their households, raising families, doing all the things I was doing in recovery. And here I am with the rhetoric, you know, so I'm like, oh my God, I saw it with my own eyes, like how well people do on medicated assisted treatment or recovery, and I saw it, and I started to really open my eyes to there's so many pathways. So I just love celebrating anybody's pathway to recovery. I never want to be the one that I'm telling somebody that that pathway is not good, because you don't know what. And people change pathways. I don't have to stay in one pathway. I can be on multiple pathways at any time in my life. I can do a little of this, a little of that. And I think that if all pathways came together and supported each other, I mean, they talk about there's 23 million people in recovery in this country. 23 million people in this country are in recovery, and those are the people that like might identify. You know, some might not even identify as recovery. They put something down, you know, and they never look back. But we could make a lot of changes if we all united and came together.
And why do you think we don't? I mean, just because of people's judgments?
I think human nature just loves to, like, I don't know, we just like to separate. Like, we talked about earlier, we can separate black and white or LBGQ or like, we can just, anything there is to divide us. It's like, we always feel like, I think human nature is always about us and them. I don't know why we can't.
We're taught that way from the beginning. The sports team, and I think a lot of that stuff, we get conditioned to be like that. It is sad. I wanted to ask you, you know, a little bit, just go back to the Pierce Center a little bit. I want to talk a little bit about the Pierce Center in Lynn, and we know what's going on with it. Nice location. What's going on over there? I mean,
so Lynn, oh boy, they're having Lynn's. So first, so you know, Spectrum has 4 peer recovery centers. We have Worcester, Marlboro, in Lawrence. This is Everyday Miracles in Worcester.
Brockton's not one?
That's not every. That's run by Gandara.
But was it?
Never a Spectrum's program.
I didn't know that.
That was Gandara. So we know the Bureau of Substance Abuse funds 27 peer recovery centers in the state of Massachusetts. Spectrum Health Systems has 4 of those contracts. Worcester, Marlboro, Lawrence, and Lynn. Lynn is our most recent program. It should be open in the next couple weeks. It's been a lot of fun opening that. We just hired a woman by the name of Kim Patterson as program director, a person in long-term recovery. She lives and works in Lynn, and so that's exciting. That should be opening in the next couple weeks. And probably a grand opening end of May. But that's exciting. I'm really excited about the Lynn. And we engaged, it was nice opening Lynn because it was something different than when we opened this. I was involved in opening Marlboro and Worcester. And we kind of opened and then engaged the recovery centers. But this one, I had the experience of going like into the community, hitting a few meetings, meeting people in recovery, and engaging the recovery community to help guide this whole process. Like they really helped me find the location. They're now involved in hiring the staff. So that was a really different experience. And there was a recent RFR for some more centers to, the state is gonna fund 40 peer recovery centers now in the fiscal year 2023. So we're excited about that.
Good stuff, man. Shout out to Kim Patterson. Yeah, I know Kim for a long time. I remember the 80s, I went to Lynn on the run again, you know. Everywhere,
you know a lot of people, Darryl. I just watching this show, I am so impressed. I said,
I've been
Darryl
everywhere.
knows everyone.
Yeah, Kim used to be I ran, hid in the shelter in Lynn, and on top there was a place called Brother's Table, and Kim, I'd walk in, and she was the first one at the desk, and she introduced me to Ozzy.
Nice.
Who I would used to just get information from and try to help me. I was at that
Not
time
ready yet.
I was acting in recovery, no, but I was trying to act it out, hide and stuff like that. But Kim's been around for a long time. A lot of people know her. Good woman. Thank you. So let's talk about the words. I want to talk a little bit about. I know we touched on it about the words and changing. Why do you think it's important for us to? Do you think changing, for instance, substance use disorder, not relapse, recurrence, or return to use? Or is those moving us to a place that we empower people? Because it doesn't feel bad. When you say to someone, oh, return to use, even saying it doesn't seem as bad. Relapse, you're like, whoa, you know what I mean?
Right.
It's a whole different thing. So how important are these?
So I mean, I think we're starting to, I recently even talked about, I saw somebody on Facebook recently even talked about, like, when we talk about even about slavery and versus, no, you're talking about an enslaved person versus what that does. You're putting it now like the person versus like, so everything that we do is about like putting it on the person and not the, like the label is the person, you know what I mean? Like that's an addict or that person is slavery or that, you know what I mean? We're saying it's, no, even when I was doing a lot of work around the human trafficking, we were using it as like, instead of a prostitute, it was a prostituted, a woman who had been prostituted. So, so we just changing that language so it takes the blame like off the person,
kind of empower them.
Yeah, it kind of does, and that's something actually happened to them as well, not them. It's not like they had a choice, you know what I mean? Like it's so now it's like it happened to them. It is not them. It happened to them. So it's So I think that the language is empowering. I told you how I felt. After a while, that label just didn't feel good, and we continue to say it over and over 3 times a day. I'm an addict. I'm an addict. I'm an addict. And it's like over. I'm telling myself those things, and so I think that when we talk about homeless now, we're not, we a person without a home.
Without a home, yeah.
I think that that person-centered talk that we have to do. So. I don't know. I think that we know better, we do better, and it's happening everywhere. We're learning this everywhere, and everywhere. There's language now that we're just being more mindful. We're talking about pronouns and things like that. I mean, people should have the freedom to be and practice what they want to do. If they want to practice a certain pathway, if they want to, whatever I think people should be able to have the freedom.
And we should not judge, right?
And they should feel supported.
Yeah, we should judge instead of, we should not judge, we should support it.
Right, and when people are not felt supported, what happens? Suicide rates go up, addiction rates go up. All these things we see when people are not supported. It takes a village, and I think that we all just need to, sometimes we all need to do a little inside work too. I got to ask myself sometimes, why are some of these things problems for me if they don't impact me? Do you know what I mean?
Wow,
When we
yeah.
say, like, people have such issues with some things, and I'm like, that doesn't impact, like, if it's going to help a person, and it has no impact on me, why am I have such a strong opinion on it? Like, what's going on that I have such a strong opinion on somebody's, how they want to identify or things like that? So, I don't know. I think that I love the movements in this country right now.
Yeah.
I think that the young people are smarter than us, Darryl, and I have no problem getting out of their way. They're smarter. Really, some people my age like think they're moving too fast. It's uncomfortable because we can't keep up with the technology and things like that. But I have no problem. They are so much smarter than I was at their age, and I see these young people, they're not going to wait forever for change. They want the change now, and I just love that, because it seems like people like our age and our ancestors have been fighting for justice for so many years, you know, in the, you know, for the right thing. Women, people of color, right, always fighting and always fighting for social justice. And I love what these young kids are doing. You know, they're not gonna take forever to get their lives back.
And it probably scares people, right?
Yeah.
Good stuff. Can we talk a little bit about substance use disorder and the mental health connection? Because, and you know, for a long time, like I told you, I used to think I was crazy. I didn't think it was a drug problem or criminal problem. I just thought it was whatever. So you put down the drugs. Now I know, you know, I've been in therapy, I think 3 years now. I had some serious issues, and you know, some real stuff that really happened to me that now I can talk about it, but I didn't talk to about 56 years. I was able to talk about it. And from what I learned now, that it drove a lot of, you know, I was always afraid. I was always insecure, and I just never knew it because I never appeared afraid, because I would do anything to prove to you that I wasn't afraid.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
Oh,
you
sure.
say, oh, shoot this, or whatever it was. I don't
Sure.
care. So but when I look at the truth, I did a lot of stuff just because I was
Just
afraid.
fear.
You know what I mean? I was afraid.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Well, we were living in those places where we had to wear that. We had to put that S on our chest, like we weren't afraid, because we were living.
Perfect thing, yes.
Imagine being in some of the places we were and acting like you were afraid. You know,
you were in trouble.
You would have been eaten up,
Eaten
right?
alive,
They would have, So we had to do that to survive. That was a survival skill in a lot of places that
kept
we were.
us locked in, though.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah. Oh, absolutely.
For years. I mean,
Absolutely.
So mental health. So what do you think that connection is?
Well,
are they seeing it now that it runs parallel, or is?
Yeah, there's a lot more of that. Like, but you know, it's just it's just such a long. It takes a lot of time to get change. Like, you know, these things. This is great because we're continuing to have these conversations with your community here in Marlboro. But this is the stuff. These conversations have to continue to go. You have to educate people. Not everybody's watching this. Like, how do you touch the masses that aren't watching this? And like things like that. So, I don't know. We have to just continue doing this stuff. It's just it is what it is.
All right. So let me ask you: is there any segment in our community, of the population in our community, that you feel is being left out, judged, left behind, or anything? You know what I mean? I'll tell you why. I was talking to it. We had in the meeting today, it came up, and a gentleman was talking about the treatment of I don't want to say it wrong.
LGBTQ.
Community.
LGBTQ,
And so I very much, so I wanted to talk about that. I'm like, why? What is going on with that?
Yeah, no, again, it's another thing that can divide me from you, because you don't look like me, you don't act me, and like sometimes, and people are just, I don't know, I have a shirt the other day, I had a shirt on the other day, and there was it was the equal sign with the greater sign, and then the division sign. And people were looking at my shirt all day.
It was the equal sign?
It was the equal with the greater than, and then the division sign. And if you read it, it was equality is greater than division. But it was just those signs, the math sign, if you don't know. So I had that on the other day, and somebody was asking me about it. But I just think that we're so quick to just what's our differences than what's our similarities. You know what I mean? Like, if we could focus on more of our similarities as human beings and the things that we need, I mean, just like any population, of folks. People need support. They need to feel like they belong to a community. And when we make people feel different, like they don't belong, you and I know what that feels like. And that doesn't feel good.
No, it's not.
And so for us to get in recovery and all of a sudden say because people aren't practicing our pathway or they look different in recovery or we don't want that, pathway here, we can't do that. We got to say how can we support each other all the time? You know what I mean? I think that's just.
And it's our community. I think, a lot of times, a lot of stigmas and the barriers, and we think it comes, we think it comes from the public to us. But I think a lot of that comes from us. We teach people how to treat us.
We got to clean our own house.
So we're not looking at what we're doing. We're trying to keep focusing.
No, we have a lot of internal work. And I think I think you have to look inside and outside as well. But when you're doing the work, it's good to take an assessment. As the recovery community, how are we contributing to the problems? Right? We have to look at that. We're continuing to contribute to the problem when we're looking for division among us, when we're talking in language that's continuing to oppress us. You know what I mean? So those are things that we have to look at within ourselves as the recovery community. Like legislators sometimes don't think we vote. But guess what? I've been voting for 30 years, you know what I mean? Because I'm in recovery and that's what I do. And I encourage other people in recovery to vote. So we have a voice. And through places like the center, through platforms like this, we continue to rise that voice. But we got to do better at keeping us united.
Think about things and ways to unify. You're right.
Yeah.
Another question. I know women's voices in recovery are important. But shouldn't more women's voices be elevated? I'm not saying that, or maybe I might just be out of touch and not hearing, you know what I mean? I think a lot of the people that I like to bring on the show, a lot of people that I deal with, that I won't say are the power of the movement in recovery, but how do we raise more women's voices to hear more?
Well, I think platforms like this, obviously, I know you're having some guests on coming up in the near. I don't want to spoiler alert to your fans here, but I know you have some folks coming up that are doing some great work. I'm not going to go off onto that, but continuing to just raise people. There's a lot of things around the world that women's issues are we know that there's women's rights that are all over this country right now that are being taken away, people's reproductive rights and things like that. So, depending on, your views on that, but we need to continue, like all voices are important, and we need to say, we don't need people to say, well, that doesn't affect me because that's not, like we need to get behind that as well. We need to get behind any injustice. An injustice anywhere is an injustice everywhere, right?
Yeah.
We know that, right?
That's deep.
So we need to do that. When we see injustice anywhere, Darryl, we really need to speak up to that.
People have
and
to have
we
a
need
voice,
to say
right?
that. And so for a man to recognize that we need more women, then you're in a position like this. I know you'll have more women in the seat and this and that. So
I am cool. All right, just a couple more questions, and then
I'm here.
What I like to do before I do that, I just wanted to just tell you something. I wanted to share something with you. I mean, I saved it on the phone. Like I said, a lot of people look up to you. I look up to you. I've always learned from you. And I always tell people when you're around to try to learn from you. You know what I mean? Try to pin you down on a conversation. But I just wanted to share this with you. Just a couple. Well, I'm not going to get it. Okay, there it is. I just want to listen. You can close your eyes, do whatever you want to do. Right, listen. I met Athena when I was in my halfway house. I was stipulated to a court program.
You're going to make me cry.
It's the same thing happened to Anna here, right? I met Athena when I was in my halfway house. I was stipulated to a court program, and she happened to be the guest speaker one day. I was immediately drawn to her strength and wisdom. There was something about the way she carried herself. She was her true, authentic self and spoke her truth. And it was so inspiring and empowering. I later found out she was also the director of EDM, Everyday Miracles, at the time. She was kind and welcoming to me and even gave me rides a couple of times to and from my program. I spent some time at Everyday Miracles and saw all the love and support she gave and in turn received. Athena has been a powerful example to many women and men. She is a powerful, fearless voice, ally, and supporter for the recovery community. We thank Athena for all she has done. Do you know who said that?
I don't know, but I owe him $20. I guarantee that.
Yeah, no, that was Maria Mendoza.
Oh, very nice.
Maria
Very,
Mendoza.
very, very, very nice.
Yeah, she
very
won
nice.
Emmy,
Yeah.
yeah.
Oh, that I appreciate that. Very nice.
All right, so always one more.
Yeah.
Get the
oh
tears
my
going.
God. No, this really,
No, because I want this because we a lot of times we don't.
Well, that's what happens.
Get your flowers.
I
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, and sometimes, it's funny because you don't know the impact you make in people's lives. Because I've had people come back to me years later and tell me something. Like, I remember her coming to Everyday Miracles. I remember things like that. But, like, I don't
she
remember.
Didn't forget, though.
I don't remember speaking at that program she's talking about. So sometimes you hear these stories and you're like, I don't even remember.
So now you know
Yeah,
you made an impact
I
at
know,
a
but
program.
thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
Athena has been an example to me since I first came into recovery back in 2007. I've looked to her and have watched her advocate and fight for the rights of people in recovery. She amplifies our collective voice and demands that we do what's right by and for our community, and that's what you were just talking about. She's an active force to be reckoned with in the fight against stigma, and we would not have enough time in this hour to showcase all the positive impact and change on other people, places, and things that she has left in her wake. I suggest you get to know her. If you don't know Athena, I suggest you get to know her. She is a sister on the front lines to me, someone who walks in lockstep with you towards your common goal. She inspires me to be more and to do better and has since. I first met her almost 20 years ago. Do you know that?
No.
That's Anna.
Anna
Dupois.
Yeah. Very good. A funny story. Anna always reminds me. Her and I, we went to. A bunch of us went to see Rent in New York City on Broadway. So probably close to that.
Yeah.
And she was. I think that might have been the first time I met her. But we all got there early to get in a raffle because you could get in a raffle and win tickets to like front row of Rent. And like out of all of us, almost every one of us got drawn in the raffle. So the whole, like 5 carloads of it was like such a draw of luck. So when I think of Anna, I always remember that story that we all sat in the front row at Rent in New York City. But no, those are wonderful stories.
She's good. I got one more and I'm going to leave it alone because
right.
I definitely had that
I know,
one.
you're going to have me crying.
No, it's just, I think it's mad cool. I love when, I just like the best part of my show.
Yeah.
When people get to say. Okay, Athena is a person I admire and look up to. Not only is she my friend, I consider her my mentor. If it wasn't for Athena, I truly believe I would be as successful as I am today. And this gentleman's kind of really successful. And my recovery wouldn't be as strong as it is today. The unique thing about Athena is that she leads, but she also builds leaders. And I say that about you too, You don't find that quality in a lot of people in our community. As leaders, they like to take the spotlight and act like they did it by themselves. That is a quality I got from her. I also like to help build people up so they can lead on their own. Athena has done so much for the recovery movement. People really don't realize people don't really realize how much, because Athena is the type of person who is very humble and doesn't need everyone to know what she's done. You know what I mean? Which is cool. She knows her worth and contribution. I say all this to say thank you, Athena. Thank you for paving the way for so many of us. Thank you for your leadership and teaching us humility. Thank you for allowing me to find my voice and my place. I appreciate you and all you do. I'm sure you got it.
Well, I don't want to guess in case I guess it wrong, but I think I know who it is.
That's Mike.
I was going to say Michael.
That's Mike, right? And I do that. You are that person.
Yeah.
And you might not see that. Obviously you don't look for it, but you are that person. I think you need to understand the impact, right? Because that could be gas to keep you moving. The impact that you have on people's lives. You had an impact on my life. I talk about you all the time.
Look at you now. You're working with us.
You work with you, moving
fun.
in, and you just, you give the right information. Especially when I was going through that, you said a couple things, and that was enough I needed to hear.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because I was scared.
And look at you now.
I was scared
Yeah.
when this thing happened. I was really scared. I got these 2 babies.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so many people, you've been doing a great job with this too. You're really getting
Thank
the
you,
word
babe.
out. This is a great little platform that you
I
use.
love it, and I hope that
Yeah.
we can take it to where it needs to go. All right, let me ask you another question. Thanks, Mike. Thanks, Maria, and thanks, Anna.
Yeah, really.
She got it.
Thank you.
You almost
Look at
had
me,
her
I'm in
crying.
tears.
Yeah. Thank you. Okay, I have 2 more questions, and we can, John, like I said, that'll be your camera. Take as much time you need. Speak to the community. Speak to whoever you want to speak to. It's your time. But I want to ask you 2 questions. What changes would you like to see in the recovery community?
I'd like to see us unified.
Unified.
Really, yeah, I really would. I'd like to see us unified. I would like us to speak in a collective voice. You know, and I think that just honoring all pathways. There's no one pathway, there's many pathways. And for us to understand and know other pathways is really important. It's empowering. If I know, imagine if I know a little bit about all these hundreds of pathways, and I'm so much more equipped.
Yeah, you have more tools.
Right, and to know, and so I can help people, like, because not everything is for everybody, you know. I helped a young mother today, trying to get her connected with some, you know, other young mothers, you know, maybe, you know, just trying to connect with somebody that might fit her, you know, and it might not always look in the traditional thing, you know, the traditional pathways. So, you know, I don't know. It's, you know, it's been a journey. The recovery centers are beautiful places in communities. I suggest people go into them. When people from the community come in, they're like, oh my God, these are so nice, you know, and they're like, I don't know, they think addiction, like it's supposed to be like a
dirty, ugly thing,
when they come in, they're so warm and welcoming. We have, you know, we have nice sitting areas. We have computers for resources. We have groups that go on. We have all kinds of arts and crafts and activities that happen. They're really nice centers, and they're really well maintained, and they're
definitely well maintained.
Yeah, and there's really a lot of things to do and get involved and be. They're really a connection to get you from. You know, when you get out of treatment, we were talking a little bit about treatment. Like you leave treatment, like what's the connection that puts you into, like the treatment is really to get you medically cleared and medically, you know, safe, so you're off the drugs and now the next piece is like a recovery. And where do you do that if you have to return to life and go back to taking care of kids or go back to a job or whatever it is? I mean, the recovery centers they're really great places. I'm a person in long-term recovery, and the first person I speak to every day is a person in recovery. The last person I speak to every night is a person in recovery. Yeah. You know, my life is full of people in recovery, and that's how I live today. And they're my people. You know, I had somebody once told me, or in a family friend said, do you think you'd still be doing this? Like, you know, I'm thinking like I'm getting too old for being. But I'm like, these are my people. Yeah. This is what I do. These are my people. I'll be with people in recovery for the remainder of my life because these are my people. I love people in recovery. You know what I mean? We're smart, right? Mm-hmm. We're smart. We know how to get things done, right? Yeah. When I hiring people, I love the peer recovery center because you know why? I hire people in recovery, and I'm telling you, I don't want to work with anybody. I love working with people in recovery because we're savvy. We get things done. We know how to manipulate systems to get things done, and because there's a lot of systems that are in place that you need to learn how to, when I say manipulate, I should have said navigate.
Navigate,
So, that was a bad choice of words.
But no, it's also
especially when we're talking about addiction.
There's addiction, but manipulate, I think manipulate you for the right reasons, and I know exactly what you meant, though.
So, we know how to navigate. Really, I mean, people in recovery are like
I always say we're good. We take good risks. I mean, we take risks. And we're the only people that can wake up in the morning with pockets on rabbit ears and get high all day.
I just love being around people in recovery.
Very creative.
I love being around people in recovery. We're really strong. We bring so much. There's so much creativity. There's so much strength. There's so many, like we've overcome so many obstacles. I mean, just really. And I just love hearing people's stories and their resilience and stuff. We're resilient, right? Like look at the things that we've had. Woo!
Yeah. Been through a lot. One more class question. Let's talk a little bit about the peers in the workforce.
I want to talk about that. So, there's a lot of money being spent to get people in the workforce. There's a lot of people going to be recovery coaches and work in this field. So, like, this is a place, I think the movement is saying that, like, we are good for the workforce, right? Good. We are good. Like, we understand. So who best understands a person in recovery than another person in recovery? So for me, when I know somebody's been through it, and I see too, when people come to me, I know they're looking for my lived experience as like, well, what do you think? They want to know what I think about, like, what have I done in my own lived experience? You know what I mean? That's what they're asking. So when I'm working with people in recovery, they're coming to me based on my own lived experience. They're not coming to me about maybe what I learned in college or something.
No.
They want to hear. So that's the piece that connects us. And like, I can walk anywhere, and as long as I'm around people, I know, I feel like I'm connected. Like, you know, that's the thing about these recovery centers. We're connecting throughout the state, like all these recovery centers, and we're creating recovery capital, right? Which is like really building everything that's happening with recovery. We're really building this, and our voices are getting stronger. We're able to advocate. There's some things, I know you have another guest coming on down the road that's going to talk around some policies that people can get behind. There's a lot of policies like jobs, not jails, around Section 35 being taken out of the criminal justice system and being put into Department of Public Health. There's around the getting rid of the automatic filing of a 51A for mothers that are on medication assisted treatment. Right. If they're doing well in their recovery, we file a 51A on them, which initiates the DCF, right, to get involved in that. And then the DCF process.
Stressful.
It's stressful.
It's stressful.
You know, I've seen some of the work plans that DCF has put in with young mothers in early recovery, and to be honest, I couldn't keep up with that in my 30 years in recovery.
The action plans are crazy.
It's really hard. It's really hard. So mothers that have to deal with
because you know why? Because they don't know, and like you said, because they're not multiple, they still only think with like one size fits all. They all and they so they
but there's
respond that way.
changes. There's things that happen. So we actually, I know Moore's working closely with that
Shout out to Moore.
system. Yeah, they're working closely with DCF and making some changes. But it's just one of those systems, like so many systems in our government, that just needs to be really just like changed. Like we just need to like dismantle it and rebuild it. You know what I mean? But that's hard to do, and that's almost impossible to do. I think
so. It's just maybe educate.
So you just have to keep change as slow as change is slow.
Cool. Yeah. Thank you. I wanted you to.
Yeah.
You have 5 or 10 minutes.
No, I don't need that much. I'm gonna
say whatever you want to say in there, and.
I would welcome anybody to go on our the Bureau of Substance Abuse website. Pull down, there is like a helpline on there as well that will connect you to, but you can visit, there's a whole section on just the recovery centers. I would go to that page and find a recovery center in your area, visit it. Community, the community at large is always welcome to visit the recovery centers, right? The coffee's usually always on. Come and visit, peek your head in, and know the resources in your community around addiction and recovery.
Say a little bit about Moore.
There's Moore is an organization, MOAR, that's Massachusetts Organization for Addiction Recovery. Go on their website, join them. You'll be all their bills that they're getting behind, and you know, we vote. People in recovery vote, right? So we were making a difference, and so I don't know. That's about it. I think we continue to work together. We continue to unite and make change. And
Thank you, Athena. Thank you. I appreciate you coming. You're welcome anytime.
Yeah, you know, it was good to be here.
It is. If you felt so. Yeah, it did. Thank you. I wanted to say hi to my buddy there. Alex came down to visit us, watch the show from Spectrum, clinician at Spectrum, CSS, and I just appreciate you coming, brother. And I most definitely. And just thank you, like she said, you know, there's a lot of resources, BSAS, more. And when I first started, I didn't think there was enough resources. But we do have a lot of resources in Massachusetts. We really do. Now that I've done the show and I'm bringing people along, and they're like, no, there's resources, and people just need to take it. Look for the resources. And like I said, the Recovery Connection in Marlboro, I'm there. You'll see me in the street, so you'll meet me there. Come on over to the center. And you have to get involved. You know, like she said, you know something. And I know that even in, you know, that I've learned that my drug use affected the community, the whole community, right?
Yeah,
Deflation. You go to CVS, and if you wonder why you're paying 5 more cents, it's because
Darryl's.
I went to the shelf. But I didn't know that. So someone told me. I'm like, I was in recovery coach class. You guys sent me Spectrum, sent me to the recovery coach, paid for it, and I learned. I'm like,
Oh, really? No,
Yeah.
we were definitely menaces to the
Yeah,
society,
100%.
and now we can be productive members of
and that's what it's
society,
about.
and so that's what it is. Yeah.
That's
so,
what it's about.
And we do that. We try to. You're doing great work, Darryl.
Thank you. I'm trying
I'm
my
so
best,
glad
yeah.
that you're part of the Recovery Connection too.
So glad
and
me too.
that's a community resource center too. When families or somebody struggling with somebody with a loved one come down to the Recovery Center
love
or
to
any
have
of the
you.
Recovery Center to talk about resources. We can actually refer somebody to detox. We can refer somebody to outpatient through Spectrum or any of our programs. So we can also do things like that as well.
We did that. I've been out there.
Yeah.
We went there. I want to shout out to Marble High School. Thank you for having us come out there. That was really, really nice. And I wanted to give Jason from Marble Courthouse, District Court, the probation officer there, who's going to start referring people down there. I just appreciate you guys for watching. Like I said, come down to the center. Again, I just like to just thank the people that produced this show, Alex. I like to thank Ryan, Matt, and Mike, and for making this show happen. And I usually don't do this, but I'll give you a sneak peek. Next week, we're gonna have Miracle Mamas, and a women's group, powerful women group that's doing their thing out there. They're gonna come to the Real Talk TV next week and sit down and talk to us.
Yeah, they're a great group.
They are. She's full energy.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? But
she's another one that's came through a recovery center as well. Like
exactly.
She'll tell that story too. So,
yeah, I'm hoping. We everyday miracles.
I don't want to steal her story, but
Yeah.
a lot of good things happen at these centers. Like that's
do.
another example.
They
right?
do. I'm really
You're
really proud.
another example of right.
Yeah. There is a lot of examples. You know what I mean? Mike's an example. You know, I ran with him. We ran, and he's a power example to me because I know I've seen.
I hired him. I take.
I see him. You know what I mean? So it's like I see this guy. I'm sure a lot of people say that to him. You know what I mean?
He's great.
Yeah, and he did it in his own city. And
he tells a story about how when he came home and he started coming to the recovery
center.
He did.
Yeah,
and they used to play cards.
He went to the hospital, then he came out. He told me the whole thing, and he's a miracle. Again, shout out to Mike, Anna, and Maria. Thank you for sending those in.
Yeah, thank you all of them for saying those nice words.
That's really cry. Appreciate you guys, and always in closing, I like to say I love you to Taisha, Little Darryl, and Zayla. Peace.